Hello, this is Rebekah Freedom, and this is episode 85 of Heard Not Seen, produced by John Beethan. We've been off the airwaves now for a little while. I've been hopping back and forth between Colorado and California, and I'm back to talk about a very potent topic, conflict resolution inside of a romantic relationship.
And this must be from your own experience?
I can neither confirm nor deny. I have learned my lesson when it comes to broadcasting my life in a way that I've never had to take responsibility in such a depth. When single, I certainly am willing to be open with my experience and everything that I've been through, from herpes to hemorrhoids to the death of my parents to whatever. I really have this sort of ability to just say it and claim it. And some would call it shameless, but I'm certainly proud to be shameless. Shame is a terrible emotion. It is next to death on the David Hawkins scale of consciousness. So to your point, I certainly have experience. And one of the lessons I've learned in conflict resolution is to just stick to your side of the street. Take responsibility for you, your part of the equation, but make sure that when you're broadcasting things, it's not somebody else's story or information.
Stick to your side of the street is a great title for this podcast. Mm-hmm. Conflict resolution. Stick to your side of the street.
So what is conflict, really? I want to make sure that for anyone listening to this, I have a deep empathy for where you are, because one of the things that comes up in conflict is confusion, is a misunderstanding. So conflict is really, I believe, an arising of either party blaming the other for the fight. My auntie shared that definition with me from her conflict resolution group, and I thought that was beautiful and salient. That each party is blaming the other. Your egos are ricocheting off of one another. I'm going to be right, and being right is more important than the relationship. My own self-preservation, my victimhood, my specialness is more important than the resolution. I want to say the other part of conflict that is very real and alive, again, from another one of my family members, she said, listen, you can be forgiven, but the conflict can go unreconciled. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. Forgiveness is something that can happen in your heart and even in your mind and released in your body, where you go, I messed up. I can take ownness of my mistake. And in the Course in Miracles, there are errors, not sins. So there's the burden is lifted when you are forgiven. However, the resolution comes. They say the best apology is changed behavior. So you can forgive somebody who does something, and you can say, I release the burden and I go free. That's not mine to hold on to. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to drink that poison and hold on to it and make myself feel like I'm a special victim. I can release that. However, the trigger might still be there and the behavior might still be there, and not the other person's behavior, but your own. I forgive this event. However, I'm still behaving in a way that places blame, shame, guilt. I'm unwilling to approach things. So conflict is really on both sides of the street, the inability to build a bridge, because either would rather be right than support the relationship. This is something that is very much a singular patterning. I'm only thinking of myself. So before we go into the anecdotal stuff and where this is coming from, because there's certainly plenty of stories I can pull from. I hate it when I had it and lose it. There's places it's coming from, but essentially, well, nope. This is what happens when my brain goes offline and it has a bubble thought and then it goes away. So when it comes to conflict, we understand what it is. If that thought comes back, great. So, John, what do you think conflict is?
It's really timely that you would mention this because, I'm a fan of Tara Brach, and her most recent one is part 2 on conflict. Highly recommend you listen to it. I will send it to you because one thing she talks about is that when you stay on your side and stay on your right and stay in all that stuff, all of that has a tendency to go deeper in you. And it's much more difficult later to resolve the conflict within yourself. You just, stick to your guns and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper.
Abuse is real and abusive conflict is real. However, there's an opportunity in these situations to say, what aggression, what self-hate, self-aggression, self-things are being reflected back to me. That does not mean that you put yourself in the line of fire. It simply means that you say, this is showing up in my life and I am engaging with it. I'm continuing to engage and be in the exchange of this. Oftentimes, anger, one of the lower egoic vibrations, is a cue of distraction. That there's a feeling that's going unfelt. Now, I'm going to say the thing that all therapists say. You got to feel your feelings. Feel it to heal it. Feel it to heal it. However, I've had the experience of knowing there was a question I needed to ask somebody about one of the things that we wanted. John Gottman and his wife, Julie Gottman, they have the center. They researched for 35 years couples' behaviors, and they talk about you place a bid for your spouse or partner to respond to. And there's an emotional bid.
So give me an example.
Yeah. A risky emotional bid is initiation of sex. Is I'm feeling amorous, I'm turned on, and you put that bid out and your partner can turn towards you and you have sex. That is that's what they would call a successful bid. But they can also be like, I'd rather read my book, not now, later. And they can turn away from that. Or they can really be like, if they're just not in the place, they can be like, honey, I love you so much right now. And I know that you're amorous. I'm feeling a little pressure and like, I'm not going to be able to show up in the way that I want to. That's a meeting in the middle. There's a real ownness and communication. Conflict happens when there's a disassociation on either side. Somebody's coming in with a grabbing. And again, what I've learned through my experience is that the difference, this is a tweetable or hashtagable, the difference between patience and waiting is patience is believing it will happen. Waiting is believing it won't. So when we feel misunderstood, this was the thought from earlier, when we feel misunderstood, we stop listening and we often start grasping, grabbing, forcing, pushing, preaching, pontificating, and educating. I certainly have found myself to be somebody when I feel misunderstood, I stop listening and I start educating the other person because I'm trying to get them to come to my side of the street. Listen, if you understand what I understand, then we can speak the same language. This is a conflictual note that will happen in every single romantic relationship. There will be a point where your ego goes, nope, I'm losing out here. This is too much change. Let's make them like me. And also let's make them wrong in the process for them being like them. The things that you were originally attracted to will annoy you later. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I think you've heard me say before, when you're new in a relationship, it is absolutely the time to be intolerable. Because people, if they're not intolerable and they're tolerable, it'll just show up later.
Another way I would say that is you teach people how to treat you. So if they're aggressive towards you and you engage that aggression, that is, you need to look at yourself. What in me is like invested in engaging this aggression, or trying to fix their depression or quell, soothe, whatever. Like, I am not holding myself to a standard of step back, be grounded, own the impact, speak from I statements from my place of being. And absolutely, in the beginning of a relationship, we know the neurotransmitters dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, vasopressin.
All the sugar, huh?
All the feel goods. Yeah, give me some sugar. Actually create an optimistic point of view of a person. And optimism is actually a skewed reality compared to depression. They've shown people that are depressed have actually more of an accurate recount of what happened. I'm not telling you to be depressed though, to have relationship. I'm saying that there's a greater lens of, it's almost like we start at acceptance and work our way backwards on the grief scale. We go acceptance, then we go bargaining, then we go sad because we're losing ourselves, then we're pissed, then we're in denial, and then we're married and then divorced later, So to the person who is listening in this moment, think of the conflict that is coming up for you. That my cousin just told me the problems I had when I was dating, are the same problems that are showing up in marriage. He's not changed over 20 years. They're still there. So if one of the things that's causing conflict to loop for you is like that person will change, know that you've dug yourself in a ditch.
Right.
But I want to talk, this is theoretical. People have heard this multiple times. You can't change somebody. You can only change yourself. Just humility, not humiliation. That's a abuse to yourself. That's a self-aggression. Humility, simply a place of saying, I don't know everything, and I actually can receive more in this place. I can receive more of grace. I can receive more of spirit in this place. For me, that meant I had to adjust my almost lifelong strategy of taking my anxiety and going to education. When I feel anxious, I lean on my books, I lean on my tarot cards, I talk to friends. There's this collecting quality that makes me feel as if I'm doing something. And I had to examine that, because what was being reflected back to me is that doesn't work. I can't hear that. So I had to be like, oh my gosh, that means I'm going to have to sit in my feelings of discomfort that this person may leave.
Right.
So as you work the layers of conflict, well, what's there? Well, what's there? Well, what's under that? What's under that? The top will be like, they didn't flush the toilet. And I've told them 20 times that bugs me, and they just keep doing it. They're not listening to me. What's underneath of that? You know what? I'm actually really frustrated with my station in life. I'm wanting to create something else and I don't know how to do it. So it's easy for me to focus on the relationship instead and pick that apart. Okay, well, what's underneath of that? Oftentimes there's a childhood memory. Yeah, when's the first time that you felt that depth of anger? For me, anger was felt when I was born. I did something called timeline therapy, and I'll be doing Erin Vasquez, and I'll put her information in, does this. She's a coach that I met, and she's like, when's the first incidence of anger in your life? I was like, when I was born. Well, you go back, you see it, forgive it. What's the lesson here? It's safe for me to be alive. It's okay for me to be alive. There's always a message in the quote unquote heavier guilt, shame, anger, blame. They all have a message that is actually affirming of life, not distracting. So then you go, what's under that? And you might be like, lost. I really just feel like I'm drifting in this abyss. What's under that? And eventually you'll get down to fear of death at the bottom of the conflict. I'm afraid. I don't matter. I don't exist. I'm not going to have influence here. Whatever it is. And then you sit in that. Doesn't mean you stew or work it out with your mind. You literally go into the sensations. My lungs feel heavy. Okay, well, what's the original event? Oh, gosh. My teacher told me I was really stupid when I was in 3rd grade. And I've just been living that out in all my relationships, trying to prove that I'm not. And then comes in the self-fulfilling prophecy. Don't abandon me. 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 So what happens? You are chasing somebody. Like I turn into a helicopter. How about now? How about now? How about now? How about now? Do you hear me now? Do you hear me now? How about now? How about now? And they're just like, I'm trying to poop. Go away. Like, get out of here. like I'm staring at them.
What a rich visualization.
Right. Yeah. There I am, door open, like giving them books on Socrates while they're just trying to like have a bowel movement. They're like, get out of here.
Yeah.
No,
so how are you going to do this differently?
Well,
that was a big sigh.
Yeah. It is, again, humbling. It is humbling.
Uh-huh.
And it's not, I'd like to say, listening to Mark Manson, who wrote the book, the I guess Not Giving a Fuck or something book, and
I don't know that title.
Yeah. I'll definitely Google and get it to everybody, but he says, do we really ever change, or is this a continuation? Really, what's the paradigm here? Because the core Rebekah is going to stay core me, So what I'm interacting with is strategies with people. I'm learning that with one person, my strategy of being Professor Rebekah, with all this intelligence and all these books I've read and all the downloads and things like that, actually really moves the dial with certain people. Especially my hope is with my clients. However, I'm learning, and this is the hardest part, that the feeling state of who I am and naming the feeling in the moment is the most potent and powerful thing. I feel, when you speak about your ex-girlfriend, I feel contracted. You don't take away another person's experience. You own your own. When you bring me flowers, I feel elated. I feel lifted. But again, it's the Imago conversation of, when you do this, I feel. However, it's not you make me feel.
Right.
It's not you did this to me.
You make yourself feel.
I've uncovered that these exchanges remind me and lift these different things out of me. And certainly a relationship that's a spiritual path, there is a moment where you go, oh my God. Literally, oh my God. Oh my Shakti, Shanti, Christ-like consciousness, being inside of me that is now responsible for this body and to advance some sort of directive into the world. Oh my God. How am I going to do this? And the ego goes, we're going to take on the burden. Fuck the world. And this is, and then play Guns N' Roses really loud and just, welcome to the jungle. And that's the first layer of the ego goes, I'm special.
My perception is there's a lot of pressure there.
Oh gosh. Your body literally takes on the burden. Your connective tissue start to harden. Your muscles twist. You start to see dis-ease in the body because of this mental structure. So you're asking, how am I going to do it differently? You say, I cast the burden on spirit and I go free. I go free. This burden is not mine to carry. It's not my body's to carry. There is this spaciousness, so I can be in the remembering, the feeling of, I feel really confused today on which action to take. And
well, I was going to say, when you let go of all that, what do you replace it with? That can be a very conscious choice. So let me just say, for me, I was in that spot maybe about a year ago. And if you remember, I went through this whole thing where I spent all my time by myself pretty much. And I got to know myself. And I got to accept things about myself that didn't really like, but I accepted them and then learned to love them. And then I could move on and tweak them a little bit and check myself out and be kind to myself about it, not hard. But it's like, okay, great. So maybe we can do this a little bit different. What gets me in that trouble? So the fact that you maybe don't have an answer today?
Presence. How do I do things differently? That the past and the future are really, they're just distracting constructs.
Totally.
They're distracting constructs. Always never is a game that we play with somebody that you did this time, so you're going to do this for the rest of the times. You're going to repeat this behavior. And while it's proven that there's repetitive behavior, there's also room for change. There's the balance point. And so again, I'm just thinking of the person who's 35 and been dating for the last 5 years with the idea of, I'm going to find my soulmate, and using the lexicon that's in the pop culture, only to find this female only to find herself broken up yet again at age 35, being like, oh my gosh, do I want to have kids? Like, my career is sort of in flux. I'm 39 now, so I've stood in these shoes, and it's stressful. And there's a grief that happens because a lot of women in that moment, for me, it was true, gave up on having kids. It was like, you know what? I made it to 35. I don't want to be like an old parent. That was a conscious decision for me. And so this subtle grief process happens in that place. So you're grieving and you're also trying to find a mate at the same time. You're trying to find somebody who's going to want to partner with you. So
what if soulmates don't really exist? Have you ever thought about that?
Well, I knew you were going to jump in on that word. And it's the lexicon. It's the current way that people talk about, meant to be, coming together. Yeah,
I put it in the same category, in a sense, a very broad category, as what social media does for us, which keeps us in the future and the past, but not much of the present.
And this is such a rich topic.
Yep.
So I really want to the people that are listening, I have a couple people I want to talk to directly, because if they are listening, you do need to call me. This is not something that you just go, I'll read another article, although I have many articles that you can read. I'll just listen to this podcast and I'll feel better for 5 minutes. There are many podcasts I have that you can listen to. There are many relationship counselors out there that you can reach out to, but the real work comes in partnership. Jayson Gaddis says you're going to be wounded in partnership and you're going to heal in partnership. So the partnership you need to look at is not romantic, but therapeutic. It is to go into these places to be able to release your story and to say that of all the educations I'm going to get in my life, the one that is going to be the most valuable and important is the one on me. the one that how do I lean it? How do I face myself? How do I say there's a spiritual underpinning to the flow of my life, and I step out of this egoic place and into a place of receptivity to say there is more than meets the eye here. I can expand into more than I currently am. Abraham Hicks would say the isness. You get out of this is what it is, the physical reality, and you go, there's a greater energetic reality that I can align with and tap into. So if you're 35, broken up and grieving, female, and you're grieving your loss, it's different for guys at 35. A lot of them are just coming into like the dawn of their maturity. Really, we're seeing this. Testosterone has an amazing impact on the ability for people to be empathetic and feel. So that's a whole other conversation that you'll find in my other podcasts. Definitely go back and listen to the series on...
And also life experience.
Yeah, and also life experience on Breakup Rehab. Conversely, to the male who's 47 years old, possibly been divorced and is like, I don't want to go into the latter years of my life alone. I have failed dating. I have failed marriage. I probably have failed financially. I certainly am just taking everything I've learned up to this point and probably replicating my family patterns and thinking that I'm doing something different. So the point of Mark Manson that I wanted to bring up is he said there's 4 stages that we go through in our development. And I like these stages. They're easy to assimilate. There's mimicry, the early years where we're mimicking our caretakers and our social sphere. And
it's unconscious.
It's unconscious. And then eventually the adolescent notion of that breaks and we go from mimicry to self-discovery. This is when we start going to festivals, trying on things, being curious about polyamory, sexually experimenting with hallucinogenics. There's a lot of that, a lot of hallucinogenic medicine out in the world right now. Again, another conversation that we've had in other podcasts about the responsibility of using ayahuasca, DMT, mushrooms, psilocybin to do your emotional work. There's bypassing that can happen there. However, it's still part of discovery. Then you go into the phase of commitment. You know what? I'm probably not going to be an Olympian. So what can I do? What, of all these years of self-discovery, what can I do? I can host meaningful conversations with people that move the dial.
Yep, you can.
On a profound depth, feeling, spiritual level.
And it feels good?
For both parties. There's a release, a relief, and a clarity that comes that then is followed by action. So commitment, you stop looking at the short-term gain and it starts to be this, what could I see myself doing for a year, for 2 years, for the rest of my life? What goal is going to inform my process? I'll say that again. What goal, resolution of conflict, is going to inform my process? You know what? I'm more interested in the resolution of this than getting right. So I'm going to change how I'm communicating. I'm going to adapt a new strategy. The 4th phase is legacy. You really start to think about impacting the generations.
That's where I'm at.
And so to that point, to the man that's 47 years old, that is divorced, maybe an out of relationship, sleeping around, being like, I'm the big man on campus and the playboy, but deep inside feels that depth of emptiness. You need to call me. We need to have the conversation. Financial investments come with this because this work is not something that's cursory. It's deep work, and therefore, whomever is out there, certainly, again, you can be making $20,000 a year, and there's books that you can read and things you can listen to for free that will provide a certain level of help. For people who are making $50,000 a year, there is a level of help for you. 100,000, million, so on and so on. There's different levels of engagement that you can be invited into.
So as I said earlier, there's actually, metaphorically speaking, there's a chair right there.
Yeah. Come join me. You're being invited into a profound conversation about you, your direction, your purpose, and the conflicts that keep coming up in your life. It's not just a one-time thing, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. There's a core strategy that's being exacted in the world. For me, it's been disassociating. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. How do I do things differently? Get in here and stay. Stay present. Stay put. Stay embodied. Be with what is. That takes training. Of all the trainings you'll do in your life, being in partnership, a romantic relationship, spiritual partnership, the Bible verse is iron sharpening iron. It's adapted sometimes steel sharpening steel. Is you're going to mirror the other person, and without accountability, without the tools to actually hold for that mirror, that relationship will come together in drama and rattle apart in trauma. I'm going to say that again. That relationship will come together in this dramatic, intense, yes, I just want to fuck your face, like feeling, and it will rattle apart in trauma where you'll be strangers. So the invitation is to book a free consultation with me. I'm going to continue to offer those because this conversation is something that I want to make sure that you're a good fit for. And you can book your consultation with me at RebekahFreedom.com, my website, REBEKAH, freedom.com. The investment, the financial investment begins at $2,500. And the structure of that is really up to the potency of where you're at and how much you want to change. That is a nominal amount for the education on you, and to be able to have the tools to live in harmony and step out of conflict. If you have any questions, please write me directly through my website, as oftentimes through the podcast, I'm unable to respond. So again, my website is RebekahFreedom.com, REBEKAH freedom.com. Thank you all for listening. I hope this was helpful in your process. And I'm here to be of service and to lift you to a higher level. Thank you again. Be set free.